Hey, it's Noor for Adtech Unfiltered. We're diving into something that's top of mind for anyone with a career in adtech, rethinking the way that you work. And who better to discuss it with than a man who authored a book on the topic for ad pros and beyond, Rishad Tobaccowala. Rishad has been helping the industry make sense of change for decades. He's a thought leader and a legendary voice in advertising. In this episode, we'll explore how people who work for adtech companies, agencies, and brands can adapt to new expectations around work, including redefining productivity and leadership, understanding what truly motivates talent, better ways to approach clients, and aligning our growth and values in an industry we can't quite keep up with. Let's get into this episode with Rishad right now.
Well, Rashad, I know you have a lot going on in 2025, and one of those things is doing really this book tour talking about rethinking work. Thanks for making the time to chat with me.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me, Noor, because I love talking to you and you've invited me back a second time, which is great.
I'll get us moving right into things. How do you see the core ideas of rethinking work resonating with the challenges faced today by advertising agencies and advertising professionals?
So I believe that work in many ways is similar across all industries and then slightly different across the advertising, marketing, technology, that whole ecosystem. What is common for everybody is that work is very central, not only to the fact that it helps us earn an income, which is very important, but it also gives us a sense of identity and community and purpose and growth. And because of a number of factors, which includes demographic changes, technology, marketplaces, gig work, and the impact of COVID, work will change more between 2019 and 2029 in every industry, including ours, than it has in the previous 50 years. And as a result, we won't recognize our workplaces in 2029, even compared to today. That is going to be true for every industry, but it is going to be a little bit more true for the advertising and marketing services industry in particular, a little less for a pure technology oriented company. Why? So I believe that about 20 to 30% of the work that most people currently do will be much better done utilizing AI and other technology. Two, it is unclear whether that 30% will be replaced by something else. So a lot of people basically are saying there's going to be a loss of certain types of jobs replaced by higher level thinking types of jobs. I don't know how much higher level thinking you need. So to give you an idea, there's only so many people and so much time you can spend on a strategy. The rest of it is making it happen. So if you free up a lot of people from making it happen, putting 55 people working on a strategy won't make the strategy any better. And so to a certain extent, we have to think about a workplace where most people will not work 100% of their time. And the biggest challenge that we have is in the advertising and marketing services business, we charge for time. But if I can get the work done in 1/10 the time, do I get 1/10 the income now? Because I charge for time. That is the big quandary facing every services business, including the advertising and marketing services business. That's just one of them. The other one is because of demographic change. 2 out of every 3 people working in advertising who's Gen Z also have a side gig or side hustle. Senior management in most companies don't realize this because they don't do the side gig and side hustle, either because they don't need to, because they're economically fine. They don't have to because they find all their meaning at work. And so you then also have this schism, which is my work is at risk because of AI. I want to do other things, but my management does not allow me. And you're going to basically have one of the most interesting workplace revolutions between now and 2029. And this is across every industry, but definitely across advertising and marketing technology, where at our heart, we are basically a services-based industry that charges for time.
You've spent so many years on the holding company side.
Sure.
You've spent a couple of years away. Are you finding that that's still the case today, Rashad, that advertising agencies still have revenue models that are focused on billing based on hours? Or are you seeing an evolution there that's going to impact some of what you just described?
So what we're basically saying is I'm 6 years out of actually the business, but not completely out because I pay attention to it and I do stuff with different people. But what I would basically say with all the evolution, so there's lots of evolution where people are trying to sell products, they're trying to sell outcomes, they're trying to sell a whole bunch of things. But at the very end, I would still say that a majority, 70%, of most marketing services businesses, including, by the way, consulting companies, are time. It's billing rates, billing hours. What people are going to basically ask, and there's an example I give, and for every single person who's in the marketing services business, whether you're a client, a service, an ad tech business, you should read a gentleman called Ethan Malik. He's written a book called Co-Intelligence. The book's great. He had a piece where he basically put this request into an open AI's O3 engine. And he basically said, I'm starting a cheese store in this particular city. Could you come up with names for the cheese store? Could you come up with logos for the cheese store? Make a recommendation for the name and the recommendation for the logo and why. Could you then stand up the HTML on a website utilizing the logo and name that you recommended? Can you also develop a 3-year business plan and a detailed competitive analysis? 225 seconds later, it was all available. I sent that to every CMO I knew and said, your CFO is going to ask you to justify your job. They're going to basically say, this thing did this in 225 seconds. It's not the be all and end all, but do you really need all the people now? And this is where you start. And that is what most businesses are not talking about. And so I go to boards. So boards are not facing this reality or keeping it secret from people. A board at a company that isn't keeping it secret from people is Meta, that has laid off 20% of its people while increasing its revenue 20%. And that is the big shock that's coming to our industry, which is a combination of technology, generative AI, the next suite of tools from Gemini and OpenAI, absolutely makes creativity amazing, fast, optionality great at 20, 40, 60, $80 a month. It changes the economics. I, as a consumer or a customer, will also have my own agents that you'll have to deal with. So marketers now have agents for doing like all kinds of stuff. So the marketers don't understand I'm as empowered as they are. So your agent is going to talk to my agent. That's going to change marketing. My bots are going to play with your bots. And so where are all the people going? Those are fundamental shifts and questions that I don't see covered inside Ad Age, Adweek, or any of these places, who are completely out at sea as to what's about to hit the industry.
Kind of along the lines of some of what you've just described.
Yeah.
I think about whether it's the agency world or the ad tech world, that the evolution of emerging innovation and technology, that's a responsibility of what people are trying to bring to the forefront to their clients, whether their end user or end client is an agency or a brand or whoever it is. But I'm wondering what that adoption is looking like as far as changing workflows inside of the organization. I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect that we want to solicit it externally, but we're not really embracing it internally. You speak so much at so many conferences, on panels, you advise boards. What kind of disconnect have you observed?
So the 3 big disconnects are the following. The first big disconnect, companies are not understanding that companies don't transform and grow, people transform and grow. So they're not providing either training or incentive systems for people to use these new tools. They just say it exists, but they don't allow them to use it or make it so unwieldy to use that now the technology you have at home and AI is twice as good as the one you have at work. The second issue is many of them are only using AI to make their current workflows and their current processes more efficient or effective. So that is the equivalent in the digital age of New York Times using digital technology to make its printing presses work faster and its trucks work more logistically correctly. Those were efficient and effective plays. But what changed the New York Times was reinventing itself not as a newspaper, but online, reinventing itself not around page 1, but continuous publishing, and reinventing itself in that 30% of its revenues no longer comes from news, which basically means a company has to reinvent itself, not just basically make its existing processes faster. So that's the second disconnect. First disconnect is you're talking about it, but not providing anybody with incentives, tools, or training. Second is what you're trying to optimize is today's models versus tomorrow's models. And third is you're believing that AI is going to be a differentiator to your firm. It is not. It is going to be like electricity. Every firm is going to have it. So outside of the fact that you think you're differentiating with something you're not differentiating with, not training people and answering the wrong question, everything is okay.
Yeah, the AI piece, obviously, it's a hot point of consideration at a lot of organizations. People are talking about it. They're putting together task forces. They're having their executive teams discussing it. Where do you think people are going wrong when it comes to true adoption?
So here is very simply for true adoption. This is what I would basically say to anybody in any company. I'd basically say, if you are not utilizing the latest tools and not subscribing with your own money, forget about your company's money. At least put $20 to get one of the advanced platforms. So basically get OpenAI, get Google Gemini, and then use third one for anything you particularly want. Maybe it's Anthropic. Okay, so you try those three, which are currently the best three. And the advanced models make a very big difference. Use those at home because your company will not let you use the latest models. And the latest models are approximately 6 months more updated and twice as good. So the whole idea is if you're not subscribing and utilizing these tools for at least 1 or 2 hours a week, you have no clue what's going on. You should not even be on the board. You should not even be employed. You're just talking about it and doing task forces. This is not about task forces. This is about actually understanding and leveraging and utilizing the technology. You look at how many people don't do that, including senior people. I said that you don't even understand what the consultants are telling you. How do you even know what they're talking about, right? The second one you want to basically do is ask yourself, if I were to start my job again today, if I were to start my company again today, if I were to start my team again today, with modern AI tools, with modern distributed work, with modern things that I know, would I do it this way? So the biggest mistake people are doing is in addition to the fact that they themselves aren't using the tools, but they're task forcing about it or attending conferences about it, they're not thinking about how it can redefine what they do. And if you do those two, what you will actually find is there are huge opportunities to actually reinvent the business. So for instance, let's suppose using these technologies, I can serve my clients with 25% more effectively in the current work. Now, the client will say, okay, that's 25% that drops to the bottom line of my margin. But the client is not a crazy person. Their whole stuff is they understand what AI is. They're using it inside. So they're saying we're using AI to become more effective. And we found a 25% savings. We expect you have found the 25% savings. Get my 25% savings that you are getting on my behalf. At this particular stage, you can then tell your client, yes, we have a 25% savings, but we plan to invest it on your business to help you reimagine your business. And we're going to start doing these new things with these new type of tools to address either change our process, identify new opportunities to go after to grow your business versus returning this. But you are not paying us now for this. We're getting it out of our savings. So in effect, you keep the money, but you do new things. And if you do new things correctly, you actually end up growing your client's business. And by growing your client's business is usually associated with additional revenue. But too many companies, both on the sell side and the buy side, are fixated on keeping their fees stable. And the like for like is not going to work in this world. You can keep your fees stable by actually delivering more value. We're not living in a world where you can basically deliver the same value and keep the fees the same. It's not going to happen.
I think about all the points that you've just made,
Yeah.
and that it seems very clear. There's a lot of incentive and motivation for why people should change and rethink the way that they're building out their revenue models or incentivizing cost savings and what have you. But organizations still continue to not change. And to speak about it from the lens through which I'm familiar, which is the ad tech lens, there's oftentimes not massive differentiation between one company and the other, as much as you may drink your own Kool-Aid and believe that that's the case. It's not easy to differentiate. So how much is that also part of the challenge, right? When we're trying to adopt new technology or we're really trying to differentiate, you really need to get motivated to change because you're already at somewhat of a disadvantage based on the category that you operate in.
Yes, and so it's usually the way to do the exercise is to let people know that if they could serve their client or do whatever they currently do, again, what would they stand up as product, organization, servicing? What would they stand up? Just do the exercise. And they'll stand up as something that's different than what they currently do. Then the question is this new model that you've created 20, 30, 40% better than what you currently have? In most cases, people get 20 to 30% better. Then the question I have is the following. A, do you believe one of your competitors will actually do this and therefore have a 20 to 30% better product? If all of y'all are too established, how long will it take for someone new to come and challenge all the incumbents? The answer in both cases is very likely in the next 12 to 18 months. So my basic belief is your current model will be doomed after 12 to 18 months. And it's going to take you 12 to 18 months to get there because you have to train people, you have to do all kinds of stuff. So what are you waiting for? My basic belief always when I was doing things at Publicis or everybody else, I would drive innovation before my clients asked me to drive innovation. It allowed me to do two things. One is make mistakes on their dollar because I was innovating. And They weren't saying, you must innovate. I said, we must innovate, let's start. But this is the innovation section that we're doing out here till we know exactly what we're doing and we scale it up to everything else. It prevented someone outside coming and saying, Rishad and his people have fallen asleep, hire us. They said, no, they haven't fallen asleep. They actually are staying up at night and are being too frisky and trying to take us further into the future than we're even ready. Nobody will actually fire you for trying to take them more into the future. They'll fire you because you did not take them into the future at all.
Points you've made about establishing the plan so you can be led into the future.
Yeah.
I think organizations think that they're doing that. But what I'm finding or observing, generally speaking, is that a lot of the times when you don't want to delve deep, invest deep into a truly radical transformational change, what you end up doing is relying heavily in the short term on a lot of promotion and marketing and a sales team or account executives and have them do that short term labor so that you don't have to jump in with both feet on innovation that maybe you feel is too costly or whatever the case may be. So I'm curious how often you're seeing that dynamic.
So that is happening very often. Obviously, people who run companies and most of the people who are listening to this are very smart people. The challenge they're dealing with is the following. And those are what I call the three relevances. So relevance number one is, how do I make this change happen while still ensuring that I deliver my numbers today? Which is, I have to prepare for tomorrow, but if I don't do my numbers today, I get fired. How do I make sure that whatever I do for the future allows me to also remain relevant today? So don't come to me with a model that says blow up my model, because I won't have clients, I won't have revenue. Number two, do I, as a leader, am I learning the new skills that I need, or am I going to basically hope to retire before this actually hits? Or can I, as to your point, find a way to create a smokescreen of marketing and promotion and things like that? And the answer is, the very simple fact is, you're asking a question where you already know the answer. Unless you plan to retire in 2026, it's too late. It's already happened. So if you aren't ready with this by 2026, 27, you'll be forcibly retired. Second, you yourself have basically asked, this is to the client, you know you're faking it. Who are you fooling? You're doing it because you don't know if you're good enough. So the first question is, you don't want to do it so your business model falls apart. Second is, you're worried if you're good enough. And the third thing that you're basically worried about, could I, in doing this, maybe put my current business at threat because I'm going to invent something that challenges the status quo? Sort of like Blockbuster coming up with streaming but deciding not to do it. Gillette had the idea of a Dollar Shave Club, but they decided not to do it. So in all of those, what I would basically point is very simply this. Follow the following three-way path, is run two models simultaneously, one focused on today and one focused on tomorrow. But put some of the best of your talent onto tomorrow. So don't allocate talent with revenue. Allocate talent to potential of tomorrow's revenue, which is take some of your best people and put them where there isn't revenue to help reinvent the company, while continuing to have some of the good people and everybody else running today's business. So you have two models. So that answers the first question, which is, how do I plan for tomorrow and today? Second is, you yourself, regardless of your level, invest an hour a day in learning and spend at least half of those 7 hours on AI. And you'll quickly figure out that you're quite good at it. You don't need code and brain surgery symmetry or anything of the sort. So you feel more comfortable. And then the third one is, if you actually do come up with a brand new business model, it simply means other people will also come up with a new business model. So either you can cannibalize yourself or somebody will cannibalize you. It's easier to cannibalize yourself because you can, in effect, go to your existing clients and say, I got a better product, which does two things. They move slowly with you because they say, oh, really, really, really? And when someone comes to them a few months later, a few years, a couple of years later with the same product, which may be a little bit more refined than you, they won't see it as dramatically different. They'll basically say, I'm already doing this with these people. The only benefits you have is you started completely new, so maybe you moved a little faster, have a little bit less legacy thing. So by doing it that way, you can actually get there. But I found that the best leaders are today leaders who know all of this, but sometimes get a little bit stuck, which is between the idea and the reality falls the shadow. And the way to come through the shadow is do it in a phased way, learn yourself, do a little bit of the disruption. So for instance, at Publicis, we did 4 disruptions. And the 4 disruptions is why at least currently Publicis is doing okay relative to everybody else. The first disruption we did, we basically decided that the way to be cool at digital is to get outside people and outside brands and not try to do it inside. So I launched Giant Step, but I remained a Leo Burnett employee. And then over time, we bought companies like Digitas and Razorfish, which was like, can you imagine? I'm basically saying, I'm the head of digital. And I'm basically saying, we got to go get real outside experts like Bob Lord and David Kenny. I can't do this shit. Okay. So that's number one. Second is we disrupted ourselves by saying the future of communications was not communications, it was marketing and business transformation. And that required us to buy Sapient and Epsilon. The third thing that we basically did is we said we were organized all wrong. We were organized for competition versus cooperation. So we created the power of one model. And then the fourth thing that we basically did, which is sort of more recent to a great extent, is basically make a major investment in AI. In that, at times it was difficult. Now you're looking at somebody whose market cap, when this adventure started, was second in the industry and whose revenue was third in the industry. So we're number three in revenue, but because there were higher margins, the market cap was number one or number two. Today, it's the best in revenue, and its market cap is bigger than number two and number three combined. So I tell people, we weren't doing this for laughs. And if you look at any company whose value increases, the people learn, grow, they attract world-class talent, it's people who disrupt themselves, not people who basically say, stay the course till I'm retired. Who wants to work for a company where the leaders say, stay the course till I'm retired? Nobody, excepting themselves. But they won't have a job because their board will kick them out sooner or later.
I want to address something that's just unique to your situation, which is that your history is embedded in holding company life. I think all of your advertising experience is at not just the holding company, but really the highest levels of the holding company level. So naturally, the examples you're sharing as far as buying companies that can help you solve problems differently or offer new, unique solutions to clients, that is something you can uniquely do. There's also a lot of people who are going to listen to this podcast. Maybe they work for an independent agency, or maybe they work for a smaller brand. And so there are some cost restrictions.
The basic belief is we just did it at a higher scale. But when we started, when it was Leo Burnett, we just started a small unit. When we had Starcom, I launched Starcom IP. There were 2 employees when we started. We grew it to 150. We didn't buy any companies. So I truly believe that when somebody basically says they can't, I say, why are you being paid then? If you can't take the company into the future, if you can't take your career into the future, if you can't take your team into the future, why bother? Why don't you get another job? What are you doing? We're living in a competitive world.
Important follow-up all the way from the past episode in 2019, 6 years ago. And you talked about blue ocean versus red ocean strategy, digital advertising, the evolution of a much more tech forward advertising. It is very red right now. And people are their eyes are on it all day, all night. They live and breathe this. So it feels challenging to find those new solutions. You tell me if you think I'm right. Back when you were starting off at that division at Starcom, it was way bluer. I mean, I remember I was working in this business in 2011 and still getting clients to get like free added value for digital because their hearts weren't in it.
Yeah. So all of that, you're absolutely right. What tends to basically happen is I believe there's more blue ocean than ever before. And all of us are fixated on the red ocean part, but we should also recognize that there's also big blue oceans. So I'll give you 5 big blue oceans that companies should think about. Okay. The first is I believe the future is not going to be about ad tech stacks. It's going to be about experience stacks. And the experiences are going to be real world experiences, immersive experiences, virtual experiences, and digital experiences. Number 2, we're going to basically be going in a world where brands are going to have to find ways, both using real people, agents, and other ways to indicate trust and integrity. So if you can help your brand with trust and integrity in this world, it's going to be huge. Third, think about a world where you have new business models which are basically being built, which are about either agents or other things. Think about a world where the power of storytelling and creativity is going to be more powerful than the world of media placement. So up to now, the entire technology is about plumbing, finding the right person, the right place, at the right time, and then we send them the same message or the same interaction, color coded differently with a different price point. That's not true creativity. And now you're going to be able to have a creative plethora. So how do you basically marry the plumbing and the poetry if poetry is the creativity? Huge opportunities there. The other one, to a great extent, is marketers and businesses have sort of recognized that in this medium term, every one of the platforms are going to eat them up alive. So the platforms didn't exist just to eat agencies. Platforms eventually will eat the client. Google ate Booking.com, who was their biggest advertiser. These people have to grow. So what are they going to grow? At some particular stage, what did our good friend Mr. Zuckerberg say? What is his model? His model is a client comes with cash to Meta, and in return, they get sales. My credit card, and I get cash. In this case, I give you some money and I get users or sales. He has no time in his model for advertising agencies, anybody else in the ecosystem. He's told you that. That's always been the model for Google and for Meta and for Amazon and for everybody else. Now, if you're in the agency business, a client doesn't at some stage want to be eaten up by the platforms. The agencies can't eat the client up. So then you begin to think about, okay, how do we have first party data across? How do we play these people? How do we create a lot of different things? Why aren't we talking about that? That was part of what the driving force of like Publicis' acquisition was, which is our clients don't just live on continents, they live across the world. And sooner or later, they're going to realize that these people actually are coming to disrupt them, not just disrupt us. Tell a story that a client buys, which actually is fact based, then create products and services against that. And today, most clients' business models are all up in the air. They're all up in the air, which is great for any kinds of services business to do. But what are we doing? We're basically using yesterday's methods with yesterday's clients to solve yesterday's problems. And then we call it a red ocean. Of course it is. It's a dead ocean. It isn't even a red ocean. What we basically have is we don't have a technology crisis in the advertising and media and the business world. We have a leadership crisis. Okay. And that's what people aren't willing to face. This is not a technology AI problem. It's a leadership problem. They change their mind based on whatever else is going on. Okay, diversity, equity, inclusion is good one day and it's not good one day. This is good one day and that is not good one day. Then they talk about trying to build cultures of trust. Really? Well, one day you said this, next day you said this. What changed? The politics changed. What changed? This changed. Who do you believe? What do you believe? Where are you going to take me to the future? How do I trust you? That's the issue. And that is what no one is willing to talk about because everybody is scared of actually calling things out. I'm unemployed, so I call people out. So that's easier for me to do. And so that's what I'm now doing, running around and telling these very senior people, like, wake up.
I'll hop in with another challenge here, especially in the ad tech slash
Yep.
martech space, maybe particularly ad tech, is that so much of our time and energy is sucked up in worrying about privacy law and fear around litigation because we've used all these cookies and these old plumbing systems, as you referred to them. And that's been so core to the business and what clients' expectations are. I definitely heard what you said as far as us using solutions of yesterday for clients of the past. We need to move towards the future. But the litigation piece, that's like a hard line that there's so much fear around.
Litigation isn't going to go away. Litigation is going to get worse in an age of AI. So if you think about it, Adobe with Firefly, right, guarantees you that if you use Adobe Firefly, whatever comes out of that is safe. And if someone sues you, they'll pick up the bill. So where did this content come from? There's a lot. Who is this person? Am I talking to a live person? Am I talking to a fake person? So there's going to be huge issues, but those issues are different than cookie issues. So my basic belief is even when it comes down to that, say, okay, let's get ahead of tomorrow's litigation while we're still fighting with today's litigation. But tomorrow's litigation issues will make today's litigation issues look like nothing. The second is, what if a new company comes in and says, I don't have to deal with all this cookie bullshit. I'm just going to start from the future onwards. They'll clean your clock whether you're cooking or not cooking. Okay. And I will say that one of the reasons I succeeded is because of this statement. Are you ready? Don't pay too much attention to clients all the time. Of course, clients you pay attention to, but for God's sakes, don't make your future of your firm dependent on a client. Here's why, or any clients. The only thing that I missed in my multiple decade career that I was not ahead of, I mean, I did lots of stupid things, but I used to be at least ahead of things, was something called search. How come did I miss something so big? Miss meaning we had to catch up in search by buying a company. We hadn't started something by ourselves first. I prefer doing it the cheap way. In most cases, we built up credibility and then we bought other things, but we built that up. It is because search came from where? Search came from marketers who had no advertising budgets or who were small businesses. Who was I working for? All the large Fortune 500 companies. Search gives no advantage, at least at that stage, gave no advantage to scale or size. So to a great extent, even today, 75% of Google's and Meta's business is 8 million small businesses, not the big marketers. And because I was focused on the big marketers, I missed a revolution. The way we eventually fixed it is we basically started working for people who were not our clients. So, one of my things I always say is, in addition to working for your existing clients, go find the clients of tomorrow. Don't let your clients take your company into the future. They won't. And so, I'm not saying don't be client sensitive, you have to have clients, but saying my client told me to do that, don't do that. Because eventually the client will not care. When someone comes with a better model, they'll drop you within a second. So I've always basically believed that the reason you have the best client relationships is you do two things simultaneously. You are extremely, extremely very good at what you do while providing world-class service and responsiveness to your client. If you aren't very good, aren't providing service, and aren't responsive, you get fired. And there's no excuse for that. So you do that. But that's not enough. You also simultaneously have to go to the client and help drag them into the future. Kicking and screaming. What happens is, if you don't do that, I always remind people there are reasons you get fired and there are reasons you get hired. And the reasons you get fired are when you don't service the client properly, privacy issues arise, you don't do the right things. And so your company eventually gets fixated on how do I not get fired? But why did you eventually get hired, or who will get hired the next time? People who give them ideas, insights, and reimagining their business. And we fixate on this as we get bigger, and we let somebody else come like this. So I also tell you, if you're an individual, forget about if you're working for a small company, medium company, large company. I'm a company of one. Okay. And for some strange reason, I decided I have to stay relevant. So I've got to constantly come up with new shit, because otherwise people will say he's talking old crap. And today, it's much easier for smaller companies and individuals to play the big leagues than it was ever before. And I always tell people, start operating as a company of one to change your own future, even if you're working in a 100,000 person company like I did. And that becomes very important. So I'm often asked to go and have difficult conversations with boards and CEOs. And the reason I'm asked to do that is because I had some credibility from the past. And second is, I can't be fired. They can say, you're fired. And I said, I was never hired in the first place. I was asked to come and speak here. I got just paid to come and do this thing. Now, with that being said, you know what I start by saying? You and your company are world class and can never be defeated. That's my opening line. And they say, we like this guy.
Sure.
And then I say, unless you decide to defeat yourself. And I said, nobody can defeat you. Only you can defeat yourself. Would you like me to tell you some stories about how world class leaders have defeated themselves? Not you. Remember, nobody can defeat you but yourself. But other people defeated themselves. Would you like to learn about some things from them? What happened
There's
there?
clearly, Rashad, some perception problems, right? We are looking outward. We're not always looking internally as closely as we need to. Something that really resonated that you shared, the way I internalized it, is that we start dancing at the crack of the whip of the client that we currently have, as
Right.
opposed to really trying to reformulate the way that they're thinking. And that has just been a long-standing issue across decades for a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
agencies. And I'm curious, from your perspective, do you see agencies trying to change that in a new way in today's day and age differently than they have in the past?
They are. Again, in the service business, there is a client. So you don't go around thinking the client works for you. It's never true. You work for the client. But nothing basically says that because you work for somebody, you have to basically be subservient. You have to be responsive. You have to provide service. You have to be cost effective. But whoever told you that mentally, intellectually, strategically wise, with feedback or conversations, you have to be subservient? No client told me that in my life. We just decided that that was true because some boss told us, or we had some bad meeting once. So that's what I mean by self defeat. I always tell people we are putting around our minds and around our behaviors chains that don't exist. As far as I know, a client would love to increase the value of their business, get new ideas, and forge into the future while making sure that their current train is running on time. So we can do that. And sometimes we have to do that in different ways. For most of the people listening here, some of them are middle managers, some are very young in the organization, some are senior. All of you, what is common is that you are all human beings who want to have a better future. So prepare for that and don't necessarily just think about one bad meeting, one cookie thing. You can do it. And what I'm trying to get talent to remember, and this is the biggest thing I'm now focusing on, is I believe that we have more talent in our industry than ever before. And that's at every level, small, medium, large companies and levels. This is not an industry that lacks for talent, regardless of what people think. I think it's a world-class thing. It's just that we have to reignite ourselves once in a while. And that reignition sometimes has to come from inside as much as it comes from outside.
If we were to land the plane on some final wisdom, obviously there's so much you can talk about on rethinking work. Any companies, businesses, agencies out there that are trying to build momentum around embracing some of what you're talking about? Any final or parting thoughts from you?
I would say that right now you're seeing this happen at all sizes of businesses. But what you should be looking for is the following three things as you look for opportunities. The first one is a company truly exercising AI versus painting AI on itself? Is it going to the gym and is it doing the transformation and so because doing the painful stuff, or is it just talking about it? Number two, are companies hiring talent outside of what they normally would have hired? So they're expanding their diversity of talent. I'm not talking about diversity as in color, but different skill sets, etc. And the third, are people who are either joining the company really cool, or are people who are leaving the company getting really cool jobs? Those are the companies you want to work for, because those companies are doing three types of transformation. They're transforming themselves, they're transforming their clients, and they're transforming their talent. And I always basically say, if you can get two of those three, you'll be in great shape. If you get three of those three, that's fantastic. Too often people are doing zero of the three. By the way, you can make that happen in your own company. You can go to a leader in your company and talk to them nicely about things that you're learning about AI, concerns you have, questions you have, and they will actually bring you on. Most senior people are not as scary as they look. They're just human beings. And many of them are trying to figure out how to stay relevant in this moment.
We'll land the plane there. There's so much to think on, taking away from this episode, reflecting it back on your existing workload, your future workload, what you're doing now, what you want to do in the future, what you want to leave in the past. So
Yeah,
thanks for the time today, Rishad.
you're most welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks to Rishad Tobaccowala for joining to talk all things rethinking work in the advertising and ad tech space. If you want to learn more about the topic, find his book Rethinking Work on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you buy books. More AdTech Unfiltered coming out very soon.